Welcome back. I missed you guys. I wasn't talking to you specifically, but obviously, week one, game one is always, to me, unique in college football in particular. I don't know if there's another sport. I know at no other level do you not have any scrimmage or any like joint practice or do anything where you can test yourself a little bit different against somebody else than college football. So every year is kind of like this and unique, but to obviously to start off with a game like this on the road in a really crazy hostile environment is going to be unique for us. I mean, with having a lot more, I'd say new faces. I say this to our guys all the time. They're not new faces. A lot of these guys have been here. They just haven't been maybe the recognizable faces to a lot of other people. So as we all know, there'll be some newer guys that maybe in the last few years haven't been out there on play one of some sorts. But nonetheless, it's been a long time coming. I know our guys are incredibly excited. 24 practices against one another is really difficult. And as you get to these last few days, last few practices before your first game, it's tough. It's tough to stay focused. It's tough for our guys to kind of shift modes in some ways and not wish away some of the days. But it's getting close, and I'm excited for them. I'm excited for us. It's going to be obviously a great experience all around. I don't know if I've announced this yet, but we've obviously voted the other day on captains. We'll have 5 guys who will represent us as captains. I'm not a huge captains guy. I tell our team this. I think those are the guys that represent us, whether it's on a game day or in other situations. But we've got a lot of guys on this team that are leaders. But we'll have 5. We'll have 2 guys on defense in Will Huber and Jabari Taylor, and then we'll have 3 guys offensively with Dylan O'Quinn, Josh Wiley, and Trey Tucker. I know there can only be 4 out at the coin toss, so obviously we'll only have 4, but those are the guys that will represent us. But like I've said to our team, like I'll say to you guys, we got a lot of leaders, and I'm always curious to see at the end of the year who legitimately are those guys that have led the entire season through the ups and the downs. And as you know, in our program, we'll obviously announce those guys at the end of the year as well.
Questions for Coach? Luke, do you know who you'll start at quarterback?
What's that?
Do you know who you'll
Yeah,
start?
yeah. But I don't think there's any reason to talk about it. You know what I mean? I don't know that it does anything good for our team. It doesn't do anything good in the opponents in the preparations of things. So I've always kind of said that from the get-go. I don't know that last year we announced a starter. I don't know that it was much of a question. I don't think the year before we announced a starter. Again, I don't know if it was much of a question. So for us, obviously you got to have a plan and you got to move forward with it. But there's no reason for us really to kind of announce things.
You talked about wanting to, at some point in camp, make a decision, even internally, with that person to get acclimated to game leader. Do you feel like you got that?
Yeah, we did. You wanted it to be a little bit earlier, but I thought that the way those guys competed, it was a little harder to do. And there's never a perfect time. There's never the exact right time. But I think it was important for us just to make sure that we're getting those guys the reps they need, especially going into that week one. But anytime you've got new, and I want people looking over this, anytime you got new guys, new quarterbacks in particular, you got to have a plan for all. And I think that's the thing that I'll continue to push our guys for, that those guys are going to continue to grow. But there is a plan, because there are a little bit different guys. And based on who is in there, we would have to, adapt a little bit, because you want to do what guys do well. And, it doesn't mean you change who you are, but you got to kind of start to figure that out. Same way defensively, you got to do what you do well. And, we've gotten away a lot in the last few years of playing really well and playing a lot more, man coverage or on-body coverage. And I'm not saying we can't and won't, but, there's some things we'll have to do a little bit different just because, maybe our guys do things a little bit differently and do some other things well that maybe we didn't do in the past.
Do you have any plans, intentions to play 2 quarterbacks?
No, I mean, it could, but, I mean, there's situations that, you always need. But again, those are kind of things that, we always got plans. And plans are subject to change, and plans don't always come out the way they're supposed to, because when the ball hits the foot hits the ball, a lot of things have to adapt and adjust. And you know what? No matter what, whether it's a quarterback position, whether it's the corner position, there's going to be more than just 11 guys that are ready to play. There's going to be more than 11 guys that got a plan to play, and we've got to be able to adapt. Well, it's not easy. You could say, well, we pump music in and we want it to be loud, but the reality is you want to have good practices. So I think there's a balance there. We started probably last week at really kind of talking about the environment, talking about the atmosphere, making sure we're aware of what it's going to be like. I can't exactly tell them because I've never been there. Obviously, I've heard and talked to a lot of other people. But it's one of those things that's hard to prepare for, because it's kind of twofold. Like I said, there's a lot of other things that you got to prepare for as well, and sometimes the atmosphere is one of those things that that sometimes gets in the secondary, just because with the younger team you got to have some really good practices. But I know that after the playoff game last year, I think I didn't do a good enough job at preparing our guys for the environment and the atmosphere. So I think that we've used that and how we kind of started that game as something that we know we got to get better at. So it's been since January, whatever that was, second, third, fourth, coming back, talking about how do we get better. It had been about handling the atmosphere and the environments that we're going to play in, thinking about it being week one. I didn't tell them it was about week one, but it was really about, hey, let's make sure we understand this. Even all the way back from January 2nd, we're talking about how we prepare for September 3rd. Yeah. Well, it's their team. It's our team. And I think they do. There's something you don't want to get caught up in. I know that, it's something we're proud of. We don't want to shy away from it because, I'm not saying it was always like that. And, but that's one of those steps to for me, even when I came here, is wanting these guys to experience the environments like we're going to play on Saturday, but also the environments of, what a college campus feels like when there's a buzz, what a community feels like when there's a buzz. I remind them again, too much is given, much more is expected. And where there are some young guys that are walking in here and maybe haven't done a whole lot to, earn or create that, they're walking in with an expectation to how to be able to handle things like that. So all things that we really want to create, all things that these guys in this room, have seen grow over the last 3 or 4 years. I know they're all proud of it, but it's not one of those things that you get a whole lot of time to take some deep breaths and enjoy. Hopefully maybe some of those guys from the last few years will enjoy it because they were a big part of creating it as well.
You would have been there at the Sugar Bowl in 2010, I guess, with Ohio State. Curious if you remember anything about their fan base from that game.
I don't really remember. I mean, obviously, I know a lot about it. I mean, and not exactly from that game. All I remember is we were down to about one corner left on the bench, and we got a punt blocked with about a minute to go in the game, and we called an all-out pressure and dropped the boundary end. A Cincinnati, Ohio kid had picked it off and ended the game for us. But other than that, those are some of the positive ones that I remember. I do remember we left a call sheet someplace that some way, somehow ended up in the hands of the opposing team. It wasn't planned. It wasn't one of those things that was unique. Just one of our GAs, I think, left it in the Burger King. And so, no, other than that, I don't remember. I know it's going to be loud. I know it's going to be a hostile environment. I know it's going to be one of those ones that, you want your guys to be able to play in and enjoy, because this is what college football is all about.
KJ Jefferson is a threat with his arm, but also at that size in the RPO is kind of below. Does he?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously
Challenges you've seen?
they led the SEC in rushing last year. They're the leading rusher in the country outside of really the triple option types of teams, probably. I think in his growth, I'm sure that they don't want him to be their leading rusher, would be my guess. But he is very dynamic at what he does, and he can throw the ball. I think he's getting better and better at that. But he is a dual threat guy, and not just is he a dual threat guy to run, he's a dual threat guy to run you over. And I think the unique thing about it is when quarterbacks not just are willing but able to run downhill, not just laterally, to me they put a lot more pressure on defenses. Well, it's really hard. Another thing that's hard to simulate, just like sometimes the environment, the atmosphere, because what the environment atmosphere comes down to is your emotions. And It's not like you're going to trigger those kinds of emotions in a practice based on the environment. And it's the same thing. It's hard to simulate a 6'4", 245-pound guy running downhill as a quarterback. You just got to be prepared for it. You got to be able to tackle well. You got to be able to tackle physically, and you got to be able to do it on a consistent basis.
You talked often last year about not just being a top 10 team, but being a top 10 program. Is this kind of tested that when you do have the turnover you do, with a lot of guys going to the NFL and you jump right into a game against an SEC opponent? Tests that idea of keeping your program going despite losing players?
There's a lot of things that this is going to test, and that being one of them. And our ability to continue to grow, not changing expectations, but being able to attack, opportunities like this. And so, yeah, I think it's all a part of that. But like I try to remind them, look, we define who we are. We define, what it looks like, and whether that's, what our us is or what success is. And this is another step in this team, not the past teams, not the program. I think as you go into week one, you got to really focus on this team. And as you get into the season, as you start to talk to the coach, he talks about the program. But I think as you start it, as you give these guys their due, you talk about this team. And so we don't worry as much about those bigger pictures as we are worrying about that, what us looks like, and how all those guys handle not just the environment, but how they handle one another on the road in particular. It gets you kick-started. I think it definitely makes your camp a little bit different. I don't know that there's an exact science in the way to go about things. These things are done way outside, in advance a long way, but it is what it is. Whatever they line up in front of you is what you got to be prepared for. And sometimes I've said it as we went into camp. Our camp was going to be different this year. Different because of the way we start the season, different because what the first 4 games look like, but also different because, our team is different. So I think we've gone about it in a little different way. And I know these guys are ready for this, and this is going to be a great opportunity for us.
Even outside of quarterback, a lot of fours on the 2 deep. How much of that is gamesmanship, and how much of that is trying to find those?
No, I think that it's out of respect for our guys. You take a Deshaun Pace and a Ty Van Fossen, they both played 50. I think they almost played exactly 50% of the snaps last year, and they're coming back playing the same position. That's what gives us a chance to be better in the long run. When those guys can play, half the snaps, there's no drop off, there's no difference. It's amazing what it does for you as you go along and what you are by the end of the season. So it's not gamesmanship. It's just, hey, we've got guys that deserve to be out there for the first snap. There can only be 11, but there's plenty of those guys that will rotate on a consistent basis, and that's what it really is about, Because I know there's a human element to being that starter guy and that guy that walks out on the first snap. But you can't let that soak into all the things. That's why there's a lot of oars. There's a lot of guys that are going to play significant amounts. If we can play more guys at 50-50 or 60-40, then I think we'll be better in game one, and we'll be a hell of a lot better, as the season progresses.
You told me before the season you'd like to find a lead back. You got enough oars to row a boat in the running back room right now.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I think
Are you
no, we don't know.
process?
We are in a process, and I think I told you, it was the harder position to evaluate and to really kind of say who's going to be your guy, because you don't live tackle, you don't do some of those things, and you need a lot more of those guys in those opportunities, in game one in particular. Now, obviously, I think that Ryan Montgomery being a returning guy and a senior would be the guy that starts off in there and would take that first rep, but there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be by committee. And as you progress throughout the season, I think I've always said it, at that position in particular, you got to have a 1 and a 2, and you got to know who you're riding. And we've been very fortunate in the last 4 years to know that and have that. And, we don't know exactly what that is yet, so there might be more like 3 or 4 right now, which makes it difficult. But I think as you get in the game, you got to plan. You got to be able to adapt and adjust. But a lot of guys there that deserve some opportunities, and that's where we got to grow.
Some of these coaches, are in your phone as a friend or so on, but it doesn't seem like.
I don't have a whole lot of friends. I don't have a lot of guys I call and talk to. No, we've never crossed paths. I met him actually for the first time, I think last year at the convention. great guy, but I don't know if there's any real connection, crossing paths of any sorts. Other than being probably a little closer, like-minded guys that are O-line and D-line type of guys that maybe don't get these opportunities as much as some of the other guys.
Because of the styles, do you expect this to be pretty nasty up
I
front?
would imagine. I mean, I would imagine that's, I think that they pride themselves in things like that. We pride ourselves in things like that. Week one, you're always trying to figure out who you exactly are. And, I think it's going to be like that. It's going to be a tough, nasty game. And, just like the environment's going to be. And we've prepared ourselves for that. That's what the expectation is. If something would change, then obviously you got to adapt and adjust. But if there's anything I think we got a pretty good idea of, I would imagine that it's going to be the type of physical game that it's going to be.
I know you often are hesitant to get too much into game prep week too early. You don't want the guys to kind of gloss over, get bored. How much Arkansas have you done?
Well, no, we've been into it now. Last week was the tough one, as you come back onto campus and you start school, and how much of the Arkansas stuff do you do? Because if you do too much, then you're right, by Wednesday of game week that they're ready to go, and can't be there too soon. So another thing that we had to kind of prepare for and think about ahead of time, knowing what kind of game we had in game one. And, so I think we did a good balance of it. I don't think our guys are to the point where they're, feel like they just want to play the game. They know that there's still a lot of work to be done. And even though it's only a Tuesday, it's a Wednesday practice for us. So, we're in a good place, and, our guys just got to stay focused.
Do you change your expectations with each team, or are you the same? As you think back to a year ago in week one,
No. Well, I mean, I don't think that there's not a whole lot of change of expectations in the whole program. How you prepare and how you go about things is uniquely different. And, not that there's not a book on it. There's not, hey, well, okay, if you play this in week one, then this is how you go through camp. But to me, the uniqueness is how you prepare camp-wise, whether, what kind of team you got, meaning, last year was a different camp. You had a lot of guys that had played an incredible amount of snaps. And, this year was a different camp because we had a lot of guys that were in battles, and a quarterback one in particular that that really needed some high level and some more competitive situations, and then obviously opening up in a game like this. So it's not the expectation of any sorts. It's just I think the whole plan and how you go about it, and it starts with camp.
Jaquan Shepard got the first spot in that depth chart for boundary corner. What do you like about his progression there?
There's a guy that's earned everything. And, been in a situation that's been tough. He's been behind, obviously, a great player. And even had some of those other failures where all of a sudden, in the bowl game that we moved our Quan over there right before the game. And that was a really, really difficult situation for him to handle, because I knew that was one of those opportunities where he thought it was, this was my time. And just the way things had to go and the way things, went that time, I think those were all growing opportunities for him. He handled them. He didn't bail. He stuck through it. He stuck with us. He believed. He trusted us. He's done a really, really, really good job all through camp. He's probably been, the one guy in the back end outside, Hicks that, has played a lot of ball that, in all those positions that you were like, okay, if we're going to roll these guys and we're going to give them opportunities, that's been the most consistent. He's been at that spot the whole time, and he's never relinquished it. And so he's going to have a really, really big year. He's going to have a really good year. Yeah, and I don't know if I knew exactly what to expect. What surprised me more is his ability to connect, his ability to, be a part of the group and the team and the unit. Not that I didn't think he would, but sometimes when guys walk in, there is a little bit, especially within our, kind of culture and environment, there is a little bit of, time it takes for everybody and for you to kind of fit and feel really comfortable. But he's done a phenomenal job at buying into everything that we've done, and from changing his body to subbing and rolling to maybe playing two positions, to being probably the guy that in the program that's quickest to have gone to the play hard board. And I know he's older, so he's not like a freshman walking in the door, but I think Ethan Wright did it in a year and a half, and Ivan could have done it at the end of spring, but we held it, and he probably did it within 7 months. And I think that's made him, or not say made him, but allowed the team and the entire program to kind of really recognize him and accept him, and has been a really good fit.
Arkansas loses a guy like Traylon Burks from a season ago, but they add a guy like Jaden Haselwood. Can you just talk about what you've seen from him on tape and what he brings to the table?
Really good player. Now, do we know is he the same thing? I don't know. Will they use him in the same way? I think those are the things that you're always curious about in week one, and where they know he's a dynamic player. Obviously, led Oklahoma in receiving last year, but in what ways will they use him? That's things you got to kind of figure out. We definitely know who he is. We know where he'll be. Whether it's the same as Burke, I don't know that. Maybe you can give me some insight on that, or somebody could ask Coach and he could let us know. But the reality is they've got athletes, and they're going to put them in position to get them the ball. And however they do that with him, whether it's down the field or whether it's doing a lot like they did with Burke, we won't know till the game.
Has anyone sent you sauce yet?
No, I think I did see something, but I have not got any of that yet. I'd be disappointed if it comes out without.
Came out today, I think.
He didn't send it to our pro. It should be in our players' lounge, or for sure in the cafeteria that we got back there. That if it's not, I'd be really disappointed. So you can let him know.
Are you a big sauce guy, like wings?
Just because of Ahmad, yeah. Otherwise, not that often. But I don't know that I'm not exactly a foodie, so I don't get into it as much. But if he's got his own little thing going, then I can assure you we will represent it.
Any other questions for Coach?
Can I ask one more? So Pittman had a funny quote where he said, the first couple offensive series, I'll learn a lot to see if you guys will bring sweet tea or if you'll bring liquor to a party. Are you more of a sweet tea guy or a liquor guy?
I told you before, I don't have a whole lot of friends, and I don't get invited to a whole lot of parties, so I don't know what I would do. I just know who I am, and I guess they'll find out.